Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, we mark Remembrance Day. Plus, it's Treaties Week, what you might not know and why recognizing treaties is key on the path to reconciliation. Raising funds during a pandemic. A new doc dives into what it was like for the Goodfellows Club. And it's a first. Windsor Symphony Orchestra meets drag for a special cabaret night. It's November 11th, a day to remember the people who have served our country, the lives lost, and the freedoms gained.
By the left, quick, march!
Hundreds gathered at City Hall Square this morning, the cenotaph lined with Canadian flags and poppies. We go now to the sights and sounds as Windsor marks Remembrance Day.
Advance, left, turn, parade, right, touch.
Escorts and armed units, shoulder and slope, arms. Parade, prison, arms.
Especially the students, they're the future, right? They're the people that'll hopefully carry this on and be up here when we're long gone. The people that are in attendance shows that, they know freedom's not free. They appreciate our veterans and what they went through as much as they know. And having worked with veterans all the time, I know it was a lot worse than they tend to want to tell you. So we got great respect for our veterans.
Because of our brave veterans, most of us will never have to face the atrocities they did. So please remember that you are stronger than you think. You are more intelligent than you realize. And you have the ability to make a perfect stranger happy just by saying hello.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
In Ottawa, a large crowd gathered for the national ceremony. This year's Silver Cross mother was Candy Greff. Her son was the last Canadian soldier to die in Afghanistan. Dignitaries include Sophie Gregoire Trudeau and Governor General Mary Simon. Also today, placed at the foot of the tomb of the unknown soldier was a flag, Canada's red ensign, recovered from the beach on the day of the Dieppe landing. More than 900 Canadian soldiers were fatally wounded that day in August 1942, 80 years ago. This week, we've been hearing about the surge in emergency room visits for children. It's happening across the country. Kids with respiratory problems are showing up at 3 times the normal rate. And Canadians are being asked to put masks back on in some places to slow the spread of viruses. Christine Burak takes a closer look.
A look inside the largest children's hospital in Ottawa. Now so full of sick kids, it's opened a second pediatric intensive care unit.
I've really never seen anything like this.
In Ontario alone, typically around 900 kids land in ERs daily at this time of year with respiratory illnesses. Over the past week, that number's nearly tripled to over 2,600. Children are now waiting 15 to 20 hours in ERs across the country. Doctors say they don't deserve this.
If people are going into indoor spaces, it's time to mask up again, especially in crowded areas and even in our schools.
But should masks be mandatory? Some ER docs insist, given the viral surge that's happening, absolutely.
Masks are a blunt tool. They are imperfect, but they do work.
A recent Nanos poll found most Canadians support or somewhat support a return to mandatory masking in indoor public places this fall, if deemed necessary by authorities.
Protect your respiratory.
Canada's top public health doctor says when coupled with vaccinations, masking can help.
It might actually make a difference in terms of dampening the surge.
But to maintain the trust of Canadians, experts insist mandates must be a last resort.
Before you mandate, you should do the heavy lifting and put in the effort with the communication, the community engagement, the lowering the barriers.
Which is exactly what the University of Waterloo is doing. Masks are back. They're not mandatory, but they are free. And here's why.
The weather will be getting colder, and particularly for us, we will be going into exam season in December. And so we're really looking to minimize the disruption that might happen through absenteeism.
Children's hospitals are hoping all Canadians will think about what's at stake.
As hard as it is and as tired as we are, we all need to do it now so that our kids can get the care that they need when they need it.
Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
The University of Windsor is also strongly recommending people wear masks. But as far as a mask mandate goes, it's going to need to be something that comes from the province, according to our health unit.
Well, the local public health service is going to continue with its recommendation. If there is going to be a mandate at this point in time, I think that will require provincial action for anything that affect any direction that comes from on a province-wide level.
Prices are going up, and so is the hourly wage. Someone needs to live in our area. As of today, you need to make $18.15 an hour to afford living in Windsor, Essex. The living wage is determined by the health unit, but it doesn't dictate wages. It's a tool to show employers what a person needs to live a healthy life. Let's take a look at the change. This year, the living wage jumped. It was at $16.60 last year. That's a 9% jump for the new living wage. It's much higher than the provincial minimum wage of $15.50. The health unit invites employers who hit their bar to be listed on a living wage program. Habitat for Humanity Windsor Essex is one of 35 local employers that take part. The organization says the increase is much needed and they'll balance their books to make it work.
They literally put their blood, sweat, and tears into building affordable homes for people in need in Windsor. So for them to feel that they are appreciated and paid fairly for the work that they do, it's essential. So I wouldn't change a thing about it. If we believe in an organization that is supposed to be reducing poverty in our community and eliminating poverty housing, we cannot pay poverty wages. So I applaud it.
It's Treaties Recognition Week, a time to reflect and get educated on the importance of treaties. What are they? Why do they matter? Your treaty questions are about to be answered.
What is a treaty?
It's an agreement where there have been arrangements to define the terms of use, either for land or for resources, so that it would provide direction on how people could live together in harmony and in peace.
Deals between Indigenous communities and the Crown around how to cooperate and live together. In the written treaties, there is language describing handing over of land, but many Indigenous people say that was not the deal, and their records agreed to a sharing of the land.
And we've kept our side, but unfortunately, the government has always changed. They think of it more as legislature, which they could change. No, this is an agreement that was done, and that's supposed to be forever.
We look at the situation we're in today, we see the condition of where Indigenous peoples live and what they're left with. Obviously, the treaties have not been followed.
Here in Windsor, there are 2 treaties to note. Treaty number 2, also known as the McKee Purchase, signed on May 19, 1790. It includes much of Windsor-Essex and Point Pelee, the traditional homeland of Caldwell First Nation. Treaty 35 was signed on August 13, 1833 by the Crown and the Huron-Wendat. It includes the areas of LaSalle and Amherstburg. But local elder Teresa Sims follows another agreement.
I follow the wampum belts.
While the settlers marked things in writing, Indigenous people recorded history through wampum belts. This belt, One Dish, One Spoon, is the agreement Sims says impacts all of southwestern Ontario.
We have one dish, one spoon. That was originally from the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, because we have this rich area, but it's only one area. We have to take care of that Mother Earth, and we're all going to be dipping that spoon or farming on this soil. So we have to be careful and use a lot of care in that, so that dish or this area does not run out of food.
But in the years that followed, Sims says the promises were broken, territories taken away, and freedoms destroyed with residential schools. That's why Treaties Week is so important. The University of Windsor is marking the week with film screenings and a presentation. Organizers say the education piece is pivotal.
We're all treaty people. Treaties were written with our ancestors, but they affect us all. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they are also treaty people.
Because we're a border town, the way that Indigenous communities acknowledge the border is a much different relationship than the other general populations, I would say, because before contact and before Confederation, there were no borders. And so families and whole communities had to choose on which side of the border they wanted to live. And recognizing our rights on both sides of the border, I think, is an important piece of the education.
Brizette says treaties need to be studied to mend what's been broken.
Go back to their original spirit and intent. It's really going to be a challenge to be able to have reconciliation in Canada when that critical matter has still not been addressed.
For the first time, the Windsor Symphony Orchestra is partnering with a drag performer on stage. It's titled Cabaret Night with Randy Roberts, who flew in from Florida for the collab. This show comes less than a month since a children's drag fairy tale event was canceled in Tecumseh due to online backlash. The orchestra says that never deterred them from putting on this all-ages show.
Lay the money down. You do an opener too, don't you?
We don't.
You don't open?
No,
I open?
you open.
Oy.
Surprise. Welcome to Windsor.
Thanks.
Here, the guest artist.
I need
open.
to renegotiate this contract. Well, for this time, you'll see Sharon Carol Channing and my own character, Randy Roberts, and I sing instead of lip sync, as many do. I remember the first time I stepped on stage for my first rehearsal for my first concert with an orchestra ever. And they did the first kick, which is when all the horns kick in. They went, dun, 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 and I went, because it just went through me. I just got goosebumps again. Yeah. Great music, great costumes, great comedy. I'm throwing in impressions. It's old school entertainment. It's just, come to hear great songs and great banter and great musicians, so I've been told.
Yes. We internally here at the Windsor Symphony Orchestra were like, this would make a really interesting pop show. It's something that we've never done before.
What do you think? And I agreed to it. They said, well, we have to put it to the board. And I thought, well, this isn't going to happen.
We wanted to make sure that the entire community felt welcomed here at the Capitol Theatre.
It's family entertainment. They're not going to go out there and do a strip number if there's a bunch of kids there. But it's your choice to go where you want to go, but it is not your choice to decide what other people should do.
First of all, I think we have to remember it's 2022 and that life has sort of expanded and grown, and people of all types are allowed to be who they are in the world.
I jokingly say in my show, they're trying to turn back time and not in the good share way. So I hear somebody say, that's bad for us, we should do that for our children. And I'm like, that's maybe just your kid, that's how you feel. That's not going to stop. That's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop us.
Yeah.
We're here for positive, wonderful enjoyment and entertainment, and let's be happy.
There is nothing like a day.
That is awesome. And the special Windsor Symphony Orchestra performance with Randy Roberts is tomorrow night and Sunday afternoon. Tickets can be purchased online. Meanwhile, the chance of showers continues into the weekend, but there's also a chance of flurries. I can't believe I'm saying that word on Sunday. Colette will have more right after the break. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, we got to talk about the thing which might be happening this weekend, flurries.
Yes, there is a very real possibility. Now, it's not a big chance, and it's not widespread, and we're not talking about accumulations, but that we could have some flurries, some wet flurries coming through. Yes, we are seeing the atmospherics kind of setting up for this. And here's the first clue into that is if you just look back to the west or northwest at some of this colder air in place that's been moving into Ontario and even across at Chicago at 3 degrees, whereas our current temperature in Windsor at 4 degrees. So that is the colder air that's going to be filtering in, kind of making its way in on Saturday, and then felt more late Saturday into Sunday, and then it sticks around for a couple of days. So I'll illustrate that more with the 5-day forecast. But a look at Sarnia at 12 degrees, all double digits here, well above seasonal for this time of year. A daytime high is around 8. So, okay, yesterday was off the charts, but even today we're still talking about very mild air mass that is in place. And of course, there are components to this with the rain that is tropical because the remnants of what was Hurricane Nicole. Drying out into the evening hours, not necessarily losing the cloud cover altogether, but seeing some things even breaking up a little bit at times. The big picture shows that it has been pretty nasty at times in northern Ontario, even some freezing rain through here, and then the heavier rains and winds headed on to Atlantic Canada. So behind that cold front, the setup here, we do have a chance. Look at this. This is tomorrow actually in the morning hours, just kind of south of us, but very, very close for a few flurries, maybe towards Lakeshore, Leamington, that risk. And then Saturday night into Sunday, wet flurries possible as the lake effect sets up, but until it gets there, we'll see those winds kind of pushing through and having that impact. And then that cold air just kind of settles in on us. And it'll take some getting used to, but at least we get this sort of transition between today down from yesterday, tomorrow down a little more. And the winds tomorrow, by the way, a little bit breezy and at times feeling cooler. So overnight, you see the temperatures, how much they're going to fall off by the time we get to tomorrow morning. Big departure from the teens from right now. Then 6 degrees on Saturday, -2 Saturday night, Sunday 5, -3, and 5, 4, 6s, you know, just in that range between 4 and 6 for daytime highs.
Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at Windsor's Good Fellows and the pandemic hurdles that they've overcome. Stay with us. I want to highlight a new documentary airing in Windsor this month. It's about how the Goodfellows survived some bad times. For over a century, this charity has raised money to help our city, but it wasn't easy during the pandemic.
In 2020, I was desperate to find some type of happiness, some hope. As we all know, when the pandemic hit, no one knew what was going to happen. It was it was an unsure time. And for me personally, my work totally dropped in the film community. And I needed to find something to do, but also something to inspire myself. I read in the paper that the Goodfellows might have to adjust their paper drive. Every year, the Goodfellows do a paper drive that raises hundreds of thousands of dollars for the community, people right here in our city. And if they didn't have their paper drive, I thought, well, then we're going to, thousands of people are going to be without. And I thought, this is a positive story. These are good people trying to do good things right here in our community. And maybe there's a story there. So I went down, I met with them. I learned so much about them. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to dive in and just do this story, follow them, see if they can raise the money they need. So with the paper drive, which was their biggest money drive that they do every year to bring in the most funds, what they had to do was they couldn't do the people in the streets, the Goodfellows in the streets, handing papers through the car because then you're actually touching. So what they ended up doing was they talked to local businesses all around Windsor, Essex, and they decided to have people at different stations where the paper would be on a table. There would be a money box, so people would drop the money in, take a paper, no contact, and that was their way of getting around it.
When he reached out to us, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and he worked through it with us. And when you watch the film, to not only see how we progressed through the pandemic and how we were successful, and the generosity of Windsor, also the history of the Goodfellows was really heartwarming to know that we've been here for 112 years.
You'll be able to watch that documentary, Good People, later this month. It plays Lakeshore Cinemas November 21st, and that's the same day the Goodfellows hit the streets of Windsor. And that is it for us tonight. I hope you have a relaxing weekend, and I hope that you also found a moment to reflect this Remembrance Day. On our website, you can find photos from today's event at City Hall Square. That's at cbc.ca/Windsor. And we leave you tonight with more images from the national ceremony and John McCrae's In Flanders Fields, sung by the Ottawa Children's Choir.